Joining me now, Lauren Tomlinson, former Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Homeland Security Department, also a senior advisor for the Senate Intelligence Committee. Iran does not seem to be backing down or its proxies in attacks against U.S. forces in that region. What should the response from the U.S. be, and should we see that shift as Iran does not relent?
So what you're seeing right now, especially with, Secretary Austin coming out yesterday and discussing the very targeted attack in Syria, that was against a munition warehouse. So it's important to understand that there's been a conflict in Syria going on for a long time. And really, Iran's proxies are not only operating when we talk a lot about the Israeli conflict with Hamas and Hezbollah, but also the Houthis in Iraq. And those munitions, it was controlled by Iran, but the munitions were going to their proxies. So while there were no civilians killed, it was a very controlled retaliatory attack to make sure that we were taking munitions off of the battlefield, right? It was a way in which we could control how much munitions were going to the proxy terrorist organizations that Iran has been supporting at this point. I think the United States is being very careful in the way that they are dealing with these terrorist organizations. They are being very careful in the way that we are searching for diplomatic solutions in the region with Arab nations that we have spent the past 20 years building really strong relationships with, such as Jordan and Saudi Arabia, and the fact that they haven't entered into, there hasn't been greater regional conflict there is a good sign. So I think you'll expect to see the United States continue to have these very controlled, very measured counterattacks to make sure that we are defending U.S. personnel, that we're sending a strong deterrent signal into the region, but we're still making sure that we're maintaining those diplomatic ties to ensure that the conflict doesn't spread.
Yeah, the United States has been very clear on the message. We do not want to see this conflict widen. There is, however, major concern to the north of Israel with Lebanon. What worries you the most about the threat from a group like Hezbollah?
I think at this point, because of the Hamas attacks, you really see an emboldened terrorist environment. And so I think that concerns me the most, is that emotions are heightened. There's a lot of momentum. And I think that's really important why we support Israel not only today, but the day after, as they move to contain this terrorist threat. It means a lot, I think, to signal to other terrorist organizations that the greater diplomatic community is not going to stand for these types of attacks against civilians.
Rooting out Hamas is highly dependent on intelligence, not just on eliminating Hamas, but also locating and safely bringing the hostages back home. Are you concerned at all at the pace of the battle on the ground and that more hasn't been gleaned from intelligence at this point? We're more than 30 days in.
I have a lot of faith in the intelligence community and what they're able to do. Gaza was a unique situation because we don't have a ton of sources on the ground there. Israel didn't either. And so I think that, that is we're going to have probably a day after report where we will have time to kind of go through those intelligence failures and discuss what went wrong and what went right. But at this point, you really are seeing, CIA Director Burns is engaged with the Qatari. They are working really hard on an intelligence level to make sure that we're getting as much information as we can about the location and status of all of the hostages that have been taken. There's still women and children that are being held by Hamas at this point. The focus has to be getting those people out safely. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of the resources dedicated. There will be a lot of time to discuss, lessons learned. But at this point, I think we really have to focus on what intelligence we can glean and also getting those hostages out alive.
Lauren, so much of the focus has been on Gaza, as it should be, but talk for a moment about the occupied West Bank and some of what is happening there right now.
The West Bank, unlike the Gaza Strip, is controlled by this Palestinian Authority. So Hamas was the elected political party in Gaza, while the West Bank is obviously run by the Palestinian Authority. So there is now an opportunity, I think, for the Palestinians to have a more fulsome discussion about what a post-Hamas world looks like for them when we talk about this conflict being resolved. However, there are still attacks going on from the West Bank to Israel and vice versa. And I think it's really important to understand that this conflict is really intense right now, and it's going to take a long time to resolve itself.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.